Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Welcome to this very special edition of Atlanta Business Radio. We are broadcasting live from Georgia State University Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute. And we're on a home stretch here, Lee. We've been here all day. We have had a blast. We've had some marvelous conversations, inspiring, invigorating. I feel so much younger every time we come out and do this. We got to do this more often, man.
I know. Once a month is not enough.
I'll warn the group, some tough acts to follow, but I really think that this crew is up to it. We're going to visit with three folks here in our closing episode. First up, please join me in welcoming to the broadcast Director, Media Entrepreneurship and Innovation, Creative Media Industries Institute, Miss Elizabeth Strickler. How are ya?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, first, tell us a little bit about the Media Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center. How's that working for you?
Well, actually, it's the Creative Media Industries Institute.
Okay.
Where I direct media entrepreneurship and innovation. And so it is a fairly new facility. We got a $22 million grant from the Woodruff Foundation to build what I call the Digital Arts Entertainment Lab 2.0. So basically taking advantage of the film tax incentives and building a future of entertainment media content creation center is what the Creative Media Industries Institute is.
So then how does blockchain fit into all that?
So that is a good question. I am definitely the linchpin of that. And so I was a part of the internet boom and the internet startup, and
with Al Gore,
with Charles Brewer and MindSpring, right, when it was still at ATDC.
Mm-hmm.
So I was one of the first 40 employees, and I was an engineer for the web because they did dial-up, and nobody believed that web hosting was going to be anything interesting. So anyway, I had a computer science degree and did a lot of systems administration and understood how the internet got started. But then I got a job over here at Georgia State helping run a film scanning and recording system through Kodak. But it ran on a Unix machine, and I was a Unix administrator and also a person who was obsessed with photography at the time. So the intersection of media and technology, or art and technology, has been a fascination of mine all along. So as I was teaching students new ways to new ways to create, to produce, consume, and monetize content, that's what I do for media entrepreneurship. I recognize that blockchain was one of those ways to do that.
So then blockchain is relatively new, or blockchain's been around for a while?
Well, blockchain has been around for a while, but it's still in its infancy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then, so then because of your interest, then they said, let's throw blockchain into that program?
Because of my interest, I threw myself into blockchain, and then I threw myself into other people's faces and said, blockchain, and media is going to be something that's coming.
Okay, so first, let's start with some foundational stuff.
Sure.
Explain blockchain a little bit as if I'm
this is where
55-year-old person standing in front of you.
Okay, so this is where my my co-hosts or my colleagues, I guess I would say, are going to step in. But so blockchain is the technology that enables Bitcoin. Many people have heard of Bitcoin.
Right.
before.
So Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency.
Yes.
But blockchain is different than
blockchain is a technology that enables
cryptocurrency to exist.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. So I look at blockchain.
All right. This is Zach.
Oh yeah. This is Zach Hoffmeister. I actually look at blockchain like the engine that's running Bitcoin, right? And it's going to be an engine that's going to be utilized for many other projects.
Right. Outside of a
currency.
cryptocurrency.
Yes.
Right.
So.
And just to give you some background, we have had the opportunity last year to broadcast live from FinTech South, which was all about financial technology. Mm-hmm. Everybody there was pro blockchain. Nobody doubted the validity of blockchain as a way to do transactions. Mm-hmm. None of them would bet on a individual cryptocurrency, though.
Mm-hmm.
And they made a clear point of distinction between the two. So blockchain is kind of the engine, like you said, and cryptocurrency is a way to utilize blockchain. No?
Yeah, actually, so in that case, the cryptocurrency itself is going to be built on top of the blockchain, right? So it's going to be similar to the .com technology, and then all the mini companies are built on top of that technology.
Right. Mm-hmm. So now with blockchain, you first were using it in terms of media?
So one of the things, the way that I like to speak about it, and this might actually help sort of describe what it is that basically it's programmable money. Or the ability to program value into like an if this then that statement. So if you pay for my lunch, but I need to, if you pay for my lunch and well, that's a bad one.
It's a transparency in transactions, right?
It's a automation in transactions. So instead of me like Venmoing or PayPaling you money, I can give it to you directly, kind of like Napster was, peer-to-peer.
Right.
So it's a peer-to-peer decentralized ledger technology that enables somebody to send like an email to you directly without going to a central place, but it goes from me to you directly without a central authority. And then the blockchain itself sort of authenticates that action actually happened.
And then it's a public register where people can see that occurred?
Yeah, so basically it's basically like if you think about a spreadsheet or something that it's a ledger that everybody writes that transaction down on, so that it's definitely confirmed that I gave you $10 for lunch, let's say, and that's written down and everybody on the network or on the node wrote that down. And so it's in a permanent record. Now, they can't see the specifics of that transaction. Only you and I, who have the private keys, can see the specifics of that. So that's where the crypto component comes in. So then you asked me, how does that translate to data? So the important thing to think about is that basically money is now becoming like data. We can send it back and forth, and we can authenticate that it got sent. But there's this added component of making it very secure with cryptography. So what I'm saying about media is that now that money acts like data needs to act like money, which means we need to now secure our data and own our data and then acknowledge a transfer of our data from one person to the other. So for media content creators, musicians, photographers, and filmmakers, the internet has been a giant copying machine where their creative assets have been copied or stolen, and then they needed a centralized authority to kind of help protect that. But with blockchain, you can protect your own digital assets and then monetize them freely on your own, and then distribute them peer-to-peer easily and in a monetizable way.
So now, how would that work? Like if I'm a photographer, you said you started photography, right?
Yes.
So I'm a photographer. I take a picture, and now I put it in this blockchain.
So, yes.
And then someone says, "Hey, I would like to use that on my website."
Right. So then you can say, then that's this is where the if then that statement comes in, which I sort of botched earlier. I can say, if you're a nonprofit, then you can have my photograph for free. But if you are a enterprise, then that costs $10. And then I can say, but if you buy, 5 of my photographs, then they're only $8. And all of this is programmed and happens automatically. So that's a smart contract. So I can have a smart contract that's attached like metadata to my photograph. So all these things can just happen automatically.
And then, so how does the money change hands?
This is where it happens automatically. Just it's on the end user side, it would feel like a PayPal or something like that. Oh, I'd like to buy that, and then the money just transfers.
And it comes out of my bank?
It comes out of your wallet because you don't have a bank. Your device is your bank. Your wallet that's on your device, whether it's your laptop or your phone.
But how does it know how much money I have, or how do I put money on it? At some point, there has to be money, right?
There is. That's the Genesis block. That's your on-ramp onto a blockchain. So typically people go onto the blockchain through something like Coinbase or Gemini, where you take your fiat currency, your dollars, and then you buy some cryptocurrency, whether that's Bitcoin or Ethereum or EOS or something like that. And then once you're on the blockchain, then you can function in that space and trade and buy things.
So at some point I have to take my real quote unquote money, place it into this
network.
Yes. And then I trade X number of dollars for X number of whatever the currency is, Bitcoin or...
Just like buying stock or something like that.
Right.
And you can also do it at ATMs that are at the local gas stations and convenience stores.
I was actually at the first ATM unveiling in 2015 in Atlanta here. I went to the conference. And my experience was I put in $20 and they gave me a paper receipt back, which represented a public wallet ID and a private one. I was going to use it to buy some tacos, the food truck that was sitting there for that reason, and it failed. That guy could not accept the Bitcoins, which kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. Like, oh, it's not even working here at this conference about Bitcoin. At this ATM was fine, but he wouldn't accept it. So we kind of laughed, but it just kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. But to answer your question, it's as simple as me pulling a dollar bill out of my wallet and handing it to you in a digital space. Yes, you'll have to go onto your app, put in the amount you want to send, and you put in who you want to send it to. That's you handing it over, but that's it. And you're going to accept it because you understand it has value.
And then, but then the challenge right now is it isn't as simple as me just handing you a dollar.
Not yet, right? So once you get in the market, it could be. So like I have enough Bitcoins where it is quite simple for me to transfer it over. And it's becoming easier as we speak. Let's go back to the 90s with the .coms. It was quite complicated. I think just buying anything online was scary because you thought first it wouldn't come, you could get ripped off, or if it was the wrong size or whatever, you couldn't return it. Same concept, convoluted process. Technology's catching up. Same thing here. It's blockchain proof of concept is 10 years now. It started in 2008, so we're past that window. And now the process is making it seamless. So you don't understand you're using this engine and you're still getting to your destination.
But the key is to have trusted kind of conduits so that, like, I know if I go on Amazon, even if it's bad, I can return it. I have some recourse in this. Is there trusted resources in crypto?
So the trusted part that I think is just like 8-10 years ago, 5 years ago, you wouldn't have walked out the door here at 10 o'clock at night and gotten in the car with somebody to take you home.
Right.
But now you do that. And that's because you trust the network.
Right. I'm trusting that Uber, Lyft vetted this person that's picking me up in their picture.
But their vetting was actually done by other users. So really you're trusting the other users.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a great point. So even Uber itself got I guess I don't know if I should say this, but they got the question marks are raised about their vetting process because it wasn't there. And so they built a system to vet their contracted drivers to make sure they were safe, right? That was the goal. It's the same thing here. If I want to take a ride from Stone over here and I'm willing to pay him and he's willing to drive me to that destination, I could do that with this blockchain technology without Uber. And we can have a network, a peer-to-peer network that's going to create a process that makes it safe for the driver and the rider, and it's going to be cheaper, and that's the key. The third party's not needed in that
because
scenario.
Then you're taking the Uber out of the equation.
Right, and that's why it's
the
cheaper.
Crowd is the vetter.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
And that's the kind of...
They'll make a process and systems to help vet, and they can do that via the technology itself, right? And the same thing that
and
Uber's
that's the
doing.
blockchain is the third party in some ways.
Exactly. So the blockchain could be supported by the peer-to-peer, the other developers out there who get rewards buy that tokenized asset, essentially the ability to write for free. And so they update the systems. And so they're in sense supporting the ecosystem, but they're definitely not in charge of it. It's decentralized.
But somebody creates the
Yes.
system.
Yes.
Somebody is the one that says, okay, Bitcoin is a thing, right? Like you can make Zach coins.
Oh, absolutely, right?
Right? No, but couldn't you?
That's a great point. Yeah, so there's tons of examples of tokens and failed projects out there trying to solve goals, and they just weren't meaningful. There's no value there. So you do have instances where you have many different projects that have no actual value, but the cream will rise to the top, and just how it is. And then they are the ones that actually provide a solution to your problem that you're willing to pay for. And maybe you don't need Chase anymore. Maybe you don't need to send your money internationally and pay high fees, hundreds of dollars, when you can just do it in, I don't know, half an hour or less and pay a fraction of the fee, or instantly and pay a fraction of the fee, like pennies on the dollar, or percent of pennies on the dollar, which is crazy cheap.
But this is an example of you kind of have to trust the chaos of the crowd because it's decentralized, right?
So like
as opposed to I'm trusting Chase because I have recourse, because if there's a problem, I'm going to call Chase and they're going to make it all right.
So there's two, just to address that in two places. One is Chase, because it's centralized, is a honeypot of data. So it can be hacked, and all of your stuff, your data and your money could possibly be stolen. Probably not your money, but your data. So decentralization prevents sort of honeypots of data from being hacked, and hacking through a math problem makes hacking very complicated, let's say with Bitcoin or Ethereum. And then the fact that you can call Chase, a good model or a good way that to see how this is done, if people know what Linux is. Linux is a free operating system, unlike Mac OS or Windows. It's basically what the internet runs on, is this free operating system called Linux, open source operating system. So that is free, and so a lot of enterprise systems were like, how are we going to build up our technology base on this free software that when something goes wrong, we have nobody to call? So organizations like Red Hat and others built up to be sort of like the place that you could call. And there's organizations, say, around Ethereum. It's a company called Consensus, which is a nonprofit organization that sort of helps sort of steward the growth of Ethereum. But that's just one example. And each of these different cryptocurrency tokens and ecosystems are rethinking sort of how consensus and governance and reputation gets handled.
Now, like you said, it's been around for 10 years, but we're still at the kind of the beginning still, right, in terms of mass adoption of this. Like, what % of the population has adopted this kind of trusting cryptocurrency?
That's a tough question, because it's hard to quantify something that's decentralized, right? Something that it's going to be publicly tracked, but there's not a centralized authority that's going to go out of their way and spend the time and resources to say, out of this group, who's using it, who's not using it, et cetera. I read a great article about Bitcoin itself, like how many people are holding Bitcoin. And that thing estimated, and it went through its logical thought process, and they estimated about 13 to 14 million Bitcoin holders, at least 0.001 Bitcoins. You'll see the blockchain technology, although it's been proved through Bitcoin, it's being adopted in the past 3 years, I want to say, by major corporations, first projects, and now the corporations are getting on board with it. So it's still too early to try to say that everybody's on board, everybody's using it, and it's driving your car, essentially. It's not there yet, hence why it's still emerging and it's still getting its footing so it can start to run eventually, ideally.
Now, as the way to use it right now, if I wanted to go to that food truck and say I want to pay in Bitcoin, they have to agree to that, and that's not the case yet.
So that's a great question. So there's actually BitPay out there who ties it to Bitcoin. It's a Visa card, and All you do is make sure you have funds in there to pay for it and transfer them out of Bitcoin itself. And you can buy from any vendor who accepts Visa, BitPay. And I actually have a friend that uses it all the time. I don't, because I hold on my Bitcoin. I feel like it's that expensive pizza in 2011. I'm just not going to spend it yet.
So now, so there's the use of Bitcoin as currency, but there's also the use of Bitcoin as an investment.
Treat it more like a commodity, right? 100%. So think of the gold vehicle. A good argument would be, given the belief that people have in it, which creates the value, it's safe, secure, immutable. So someone can't just take it away. Someone can't crash the system, and it doesn't need the third party. So someone can't create more of it either. So its value should retain and hopefully grow over time. So if you have more of it, the better off you're going to be. Just like gold, just like anything else that has some sort of value that can't be more supply added to it. And so that's why they're treating it. They actually defined it as a commodity. And that's why in the long run, you would potentially see it become within different funds or a global currency, some kind of base thing. And that's kind of the starting point. Who knows where it's going to go, but that's why it's been categorized that way, and that's why it's being treated as an investment. Essentially, some investment vehicles are being built around it, just like they did with gold and just silver. Was it Palladium is another big one that's hot out there.
Tulips were a big one at one time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a straight up commodity, 100%.
Some people say, some of these tokens are better as a store of value, and some are better as a medium of exchange. And so there, you can almost think of it as different types of currency or different types of communities or different types of usefulness. So we're seeing a lot of things rise up and experiments being made. Something's going to stick, and clearly Bitcoin has stuck for sure. Ethereum, because it's got this really great smart contract programmable component to it. And then there's the bazillions of altcoins, beyond that. But people are looking for sort of, the killer app or the, mass adoption. And when people when people see that it's more convenient to use a cryptocurrency or one of these tokens to do the things that they need to do, that will happen. So it's like little communities popping up.
Yeah, so that made me think of this. I'll run off a little bit of tangent here. It was a little short video about a lemonade stand in the desert. And that guy comes up to buy some lemonade, and lemonade, the product itself is okay, but he can't buy it easily. He has to take a 17-step process to get cryptocurrency, the wallet, everything else, and transfer it over, and then accept it, process the block, and then get the lemonade. So the process, so he kept on leaving and coming back to get everything in order. And then it fast forwards to the future, where it just shows up on the bench he's sitting in the park on delivery, just like any other product, and it's a fine product, et cetera. So the technology on that both scenarios is very convoluted, and it's something that confuses people to the point where just like online companies today are very simple, and you can get your products in a heartbeat, just like Amazon. The same thing. It's just being created and then refined to the point where it's everywhere and you don't know it, and that's the point. That's when you're going to adopt it. No one wants to go through the process, and no one wants to understand it either. I don't.
So now at GSU, there's this blockchain. Mm-hmm. Is it a major? What is the program?
So there are different groups of people that teach maybe a class in blockchain or in fintech, but what I wanted to do was not in a computer science environment or not in a fintech or thfinance environment. Take any student from any degree and teach them, first of all, what blockchain is. So this through the blockchain lab, they take a series of 5 workshops or 5 weeks, 2 hours a week, and they learn what blockchain is, and I promise we do a lot better job than what we're doing right here, because we actually even play a game where I really help people sort of simulate what mining is and that whole thing. But they learn what blockchain is, they learn why it's important, they learn some of the use cases, and then they learn how to what the development ecosystem is, and they learn how to write a smart contract and change that smart contract to do some of the things that they want it to do. And after they've done that, they learn to create their own token and then trade it through a MetaMask, which is a wallet, amongst their friends. And once they sort of see how the whole thing works and understand how smooth it is, even though they've made some of these difficult steps, really the learning just, skyrockets after that.
And that's the hardest part, too. Every step she touched on, I self-taught myself that in 2017, and it's terrifying when you're dealing with your own money on the line. Last thing you want to do is lose it like a fool, right? And there, at that time, you could read articles, but it all was Greek, essentially. If you're not in the space, you don't know. You have to self-teach yourself. So, I mean, I slowly went through the process. It's painful. I wish there was a class like that 2 years ago, when I was trying to get into the space.
All right, so let's bring on Drew. Now, Drew Shah, how are you involved in this? You're a current student,
yeah,
right? Zach, student. You're an alumni.
I am, yeah. I went through the professional MBA program, stellar program at GSU.
Okay, so you didn't get any degree or anything in blockchain because this is all new. So you just went to GSU, and then now are in blockchain. You're doing work in and around blockchain.
Well, yeah. So I'm actually in as a hobby, right? No, I mean, I do still buy and sell some the tokens and everything else, but I just follow the market. Huge enthusiast. I have a book that I wrote which tells my story, which is, it's not like, this developer guy knew about this tech. It's more of a farm boy that's
just a regular person who figured it out through trial and error.
I mean, I'm talking, I used to pick rocks and get paid for it out of the field. But I got into it in trial and error, and it's part of the book was to tell people what not to do, what I did wrong. And then, of course, Timothy Suggs has his own story, which we combined. And then John Gronowski, which I met in MBA school, he was able to tell it because you don't want to read what I write. It's not going to be that entertaining. But he, great writer, is able to portray a financial message in an interesting way. So we came up with the Millionaire Millennials, which tells my story and Tim Suggs' story as told by John.
And then Drew is a current student.
Yes, I'm a current student.
Who's going through the blockchain, some of the workshops of blockchain.
Yeah, I'm going through the workshops, and we're exploring.
You got to lean in there.
And we're exploring applications of blockchain. I think it's important to mention that on an extremely macro level, it's basically Internet 3.0, as it's been called. So we're kind of exploring applications, and I think it's valuable that the lab is open to anybody, whether it's discussing policy around the new internet, if you will, or applications for banking or whatever it may be. So
what's your major?
So I'm majoring in media entrepreneurship and computer science. Additionally, outside of school, I run a private venture capital firm, and I'm trying to get all my clients on blockchain as well. So a lot of the applications we're making now are kind of alternatives to what the current internet is.
And then, so those are the investments that they're making through your venture capital firm?
Yeah.
And then, so you're invested in blockchain?
Yes, I'm personally invested in blockchain. I'm also exploring it as I go through college.
And then, so what have you learned in this program?
So, of course, the technicals of actually building out blockchain and seeing where the processes lie and essentially how it's built and how it runs, which I think is immensely valuable when it comes to seeing the applications on top of it. So I like to think of it in a very simplified sense where blockchain is kind of, well, as I mentioned, the internet and the applications on top of it are kind of what makes things run. So in that situation...
So what is this Panther coin? Is that a crypto?
Sure. So Panther coin is something we're exploring at Georgia State.
So that's a Georgia State crypto currency?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That you all agree. What is it, Zach? You made a face.
Well, no, it's right now. It sounds like it's in the works.
Yes, it's in the works.
It's something
it
that you guys
doesn't
are putting
exist
together.
yet.
Right.
Not yet.
Yeah,
it's something we're exploring and seeing what the best application is.
So this is an example of anybody can create a cryptocurrency if we all agree that it has value.
That's
yeah,
correct.
totally.
Yeah,
it has value at state, maybe not outside.
Let's look at it this way because we were just talking about this, and I didn't know he was actually coming up with this coin idea because I just thought it was a good idea, which it's an obvious solution for GSU. And to quite simply state, a lot of listeners won't know that we currently have, as a student, you have a Panther card that's going to tie U.S. dollars to it, and you can buy things at the stores.
Right.
So it's like a credit card, and it's backed by Discover. So Discover is the company that's your third party guaranteeing the transactions. The blockchain technology makes it so simple. You can cut out Discover, create the Panther coin, make it equal to the U.S. dollar. People will have a credit card just like before. They can buy things at the store. And now GSU does not have to pay the contract fees to Discover for them to back the transactions of this business. So now they can cut out Discover, save, I don't know how much you guys are paying, but probably too much. And you can have this through a blockchain ledger. So now you have a real world case scenario for currency in a closed environment. And it could be used internally
in the GSU campus and
So I would like to throw a caveat into that, which is that eventually what Zach said might be a potential goal. But at the moment, we're using it as just a simple tokenized economy, just like point systems or a token system where students will use it to say, oh, they get, 3 tokens for going to the blockchain lab, and they get 2 tokens for, helping on the radio show, and they get and then they get prizes. We're not tying it to any dollar
it's
at
like
the moment.
Dave and Buster's.
It's Dave and Buster coins, but
I'm talking theoretically.
Yes, theoretically.
I haven't spoken to either of them about this. This is
but
just
that's
my
where
ideas.
you see where it could go.
For me, it's an obvious solution, and it's something that it could be adopted by universities across the country. And if you thought about it, you could take a coin that has real value. Let's say you have 1 billion of them, but it's just controlled by you. It's not going to be exchanged. And you can give it to students who are achieving above and beyond or humanities or whatever, and you can give them $20 that they can spend in the stores, and there's very little cost to you.
When I was a kid and we would go to the arcade in the mall, if you bought 4 tokens, it cost you $1. It was just like a quarter, and the machines took a quarter or a token. Mm-hmm. But if you gave the guy like $5, you got more than whatever it is, 20 quarters, right?
You got a baker's dozen.
So there is some precedent for this kind of general idea, right? Now, is there also something, when you have a blockchain in place, is it also saying, look, Stone's got $5, and we all agree, or maybe it's not dollars, Stone's got 5 clamshells, and we all agree Stone's got 5 clamshells, and Stone can't convince any of us that he's got 6, because we all know he's got 5. There's that aspect to it too, right?
That's the consensus mechanism.
Okay.
And the easiest way to think about that is that if there's 5 of us, if those of you who can't see, there's 5 of us sitting in here with microphones in front of us. And let's just say we made the Stone coin. And we have the Stone coin, and we all got on, and we each have 10 Stone coins. And if I want to give Drew 2 Stone coins for saying something nice about me on the radio, then I give him through the network 2 Stone coins, and every single one of you writes down, Elizabeth gave Drew 2 Stone coins. And so then that's on a ledger. And then all of our ledgers say the exact same thing. So nobody can dispute it. That's how that happens.
Right.
That's the mining process is to achieve consensus. You have a bunch of people with computers who are running equations to balance this ledger. And it's a first come, first serve. So let's say they're looking for 1,000 confirmations, and they have 100,000 miners trying to get the first 1,000 for the reward. So the first come, hit there, solve the equations, balance the ledger. And if someone's cheating in there, consensus won't be achieved. And that part that doesn't match the rest will be thrown out. So you have this, that's part of the blockchain technology. It's built into the code where you have a referee system that can't be cheated.
But then how would it work if GSU wanted to create this Panther coin that's real currency that is not a Dave and Buster's? Because it can it be, I'll ask it this way, can it be that, okay, they put in $1 million in real, hard currency, gold or whatever we decide is real currency, and then that's getting kind of debited. Now, if I have a Panther coin, I'm like, well, you know what? There's only $1 million. So that could go up in value. I could bet that there might be appreciation of this because it's a limited amount. If it's something that can be just, I'm going to make another million,
Right.
then it can devalue my...
So, yeah, I want to be very careful with that. First of all, I just want to make sure that we are not doing this.
Right. This is
a test
a thought
bed.
experience.
It's a thought. Well, we're actually going to use the Dave and Buster's model, and we're going to play around and see where people might be incentivized to use the coin or disincentivized, or they might hold them or stash them up or something like that.
Or just try to get them all.
Or try to get them
right.
all. But when, and this is something that students learn when they take my workshop, is that when you create a coin, you say how many are going to be there.
So you say up front. That's
you
part
say
of the deal.
up front. That's part of the deal. Yeah, okay. And you say how many there's going to be and to what decimal point, it's going to be logged at. And then you can begin to exchange those. Now, once you've got people on the network and you decide to make some more, then it has to be a consensus and there has to be, all kinds of agreements. But yeah, you can't just keep minting coins yourself. And
well, there was a period of time when baseball cards went up in value, right? And they were like, well, this Mickey Mantle card has a lot of value because there weren't that many of them at that time. So then the value, because it's a scarcity,
Yes.
right? A supply and demand. There was only 10, and then so those 10 become extremely valuable. But I always thought, well, what stops the card company from just going, you know what? If 10, each one's worth $1 million, why don't we just make one more?
Well, so what's very interesting about that is that, so what we're talking about is Panther coins, and each one is identical. And one of the things that was mentioned on our panel that we just had was something very much along the lines of the baseball cards, like you're talking about. And so you can think about it like if baseball cards was on the blockchain or Beanie Babies was on the blockchain.
Right.
So the most killer app that's happened on the blockchain so far has been CryptoKitties. And CryptoKitties is where you get a little digital cat, and it's on the blockchain, and another one cannot be made.
So it's unique.
It's unique. It's completely unique. And then you buy and trade, and then you trade them with other people. So this whole idea of baseball cards is definitely become a very fun use case scenario, and you can find there's all kinds of games and worlds out there where people are doing this non-fungible token exchange, like that's art, that's creative assets,
right? So
that are all unique.
But that's the beauty of once you go into the world of art, then it's in the eye of the beholder, right? There's no longer any kind of a logical cost or value. It's in whatever the person wants to pay.
Right, but at least it's at least you can authenticate the fact that it's the actual art object, and yes, and so yeah, things rise and fall in value, just like music, art, all kinds of things. But there's a record of it, and it can't be duplicated, and it can't be stolen, and the owner is on the blockchain, is registered on the blockchain. So that's one of the art auction houses are using this right now. So many places are using this right now. Musicians are seeing this as a major way to monetize music, and then get derivatives and give credit and all sorts of things.
And I think that's a great way too. With that scenario, let's back off from the currency side of it. And what you just said is she's essentially saying these tokens are representing the art themselves. So now you have a timestamp of when it was submitted online. It's immutable. It's in the blockchain. So now you have proof that this is your art. It's not someone else's that comes out later and copies it. And I do remember the baseball cards. I mean, I'm not that old, but I do remember buying the replicas of the OGs, right? So, and you're going to see that as well. And they had less value. That's why I could buy them.
So isn't this going to disrupt fintech and the whole banking world? One of my pet peeves, and Lee knows this, is I feel like I could get a sack full of money, put it on the back of my bicycle, and ride my bike out to California and get it to someone quicker than I can put it through electronic funds transfer. And I assume it's because they're all making money on the float overnight. And that's going to go the way of the dinosaur at some point, right? We really are going to be able to legitimately transfer value to whom we want to without being worried about it getting hacked, and it's going to be able to happen a heck of a lot faster than it does now, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to have to adapt or die or whatever, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that a lot of these systems probably could be made faster without a blockchain technology, but it's the incentivization that to get things up to speed with blockchain that's making people sort of make a lot more transitions and a lot more improvements, because people have to collaborate and have to jump on the bandwagon to move forward with this. So yes, that's
now. This sounds great. I'm a big fan of chaos and this decentralization. Now, how do governments feel about this, and how are they going to be able to tax this? Because they want to get their piece of the cut too. You were worried about Chase getting their Discover getting their 1%. The government's going to want a piece of the action.
Yeah, and they're going to get the piece of the action, right? So they're still playing catch up in terms of how to regulate it, and even how to clearly define it. The SEC is still, unfortunately, they can't do a broad stroke and say this was an ICO because of this. This was a company that went through initial coin offering because they did A, B, and C. Because the tech is moving so quickly, the government can't keep up. So it is the tortoise and the hare. The hare is the technology. The tortoise is the governmental regulation, or the body that's trying to catch up. But in this case, unfortunately, the hare is going to win the race because it's moving too fast. It will be defined. 2018 was clearly a year of them trying to define an SEC security versus a commodity or a tokenized blockchain that allows access to a system, but it's being treated as an exchange item where people buying and selling it, which could create a security. So they are going to come out with clear guidelines, and they may wait for regulators to redefine the law. They may actually say, don't change the law, just define it better and give us more clarification, and then the SEC will enforce it. It's hard to tell exactly what will happen, but we do know through the SEC's correspondence with the public that the crypto mom is quite supportive of the ETFs. So she's communicated that approval is coming, and that means you can buy Bitcoin with your 401k down the road through Fidelity, let's say. So she's indicated yes, and we've seen actions in the past that reinforce that it will happen. But that is just one piece. The Bitcoin is a commodity. Ethereum, they're saying, is a commodity. But these ICO companies, it's not clear if they're securities or not. If they're securities, then they go through an approved compliant exchange. So they report taxes and we pay taxes on them. And that's how they regulate it. So until they push them through compliant exchanges, they're not going to they're not going to be able to keep up with it. So that's the route that they're pushing for.
But now,
which is fascinating.
So it'll be treated like if I bought Bitcoin at 600 and it's now whatever it is, what is it, 7,000 or?
Yeah, so it's what, 3,800 right now.
3,800. So it's 3,800. So it's not anything until I sell it, or is it? Am I on the hook?
It's treated as. Oh, that's a great point. So. First of all, we should not be giving any tax advice on here.
We're not giving any tax advice.
Put that disclaimer out there.
Our investment advice as well. But I'll say I'm not a tax accountant or anything. I mean, don't do anything like that. But my understanding is you look at it as a security, but you're going to report it as inventory, which is what you do with commodity. Mm-hmm. And that was my understanding. And if you lost, like most people in 2018, from what I understand, you can only report up to $3,000 in loss, and you can carry it over year. So that's.
But that's as part of the messiness of this kind of situation,
yes.
Right? This is uncharted territory. Nobody knows what it is. It's changing, regularly. Mm-hmm. So the government is way behind, probably, and then it's just a free for all at this point, right?
No, it's not a free for all, and they're paying very close attention. And there's and so again, not tax advice, but those on ramps that we were talking about.
Right.
When you transfer your dollars into crypto. if a certain amount has been transferred, say 10,000 or more, then the government is checking on that to see, how that's being exchanged, so that they can
that's
get their
a normal in the banking. 10,000 is a threshold where they pay attention.
I think Coinbase, they
Yes.
say what they're reporting to the government online, which was a battle 2 years ago or maybe last year. But I think it's 25,000, maybe 20.
Okay.
I think it's 25, and then you got, once again,
It sounds like a
do your
free-for-all.
research. But but you have to also have over 200 trades and buys and sells plus the 25,000. So if you transferred over $100,000 and you only traded 3 times on Coinbase, they're not reporting that. So you're exactly right. It's a free-for-all. It's the Wild West, and they're playing catch-up to regulate it. Obviously, people should be reporting the government as citizens, but the challenge is you need a system in place to make sure they do it, right? Keep people in check.
And
that's
a
what
lot
they're
of the
working on.
early adopters are doing not legal things.
No, I wouldn't say that. I think there's a lot of very compliant individuals out there, but the question would be exactly what is compliant, right? Is it been clearly defined? And that's part of the challenge is you don't have expert advice telling you what to do because the regulation side has given advice, but it doesn't necessarily apply to the new changing technology. So it is catching up, but I think there's real efforts out there to be compliant and do the right thing. The challenge is all the different fraud, and you only hear about exceptions in the news, right? And that's just how we live our lives. We think about tornadoes that kill people, and yet there's more people in car crashes every day.
Right.
It's just how we are.
So if this is the climate, Drew, how do you sit in a conference room and tell your venture capital folks that we ought to be playing in this arena?
That's a tough one.
Yeah, that is a tough one.
I mean, I can see somebody like Lee with with Lee's pockets getting excited about it and throwing some money at this thing. But I mean, seriously, that's got to be a tough conversation or a challenging conversation. I
Yeah.
think.
So luckily, so far, it's been, as mentioned, applications of the tech. I think that's kind of the best way to go about it now. The investment side is super tricky, as you've
you're
heard.
selling the shovels.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a little tricky. So when it comes
thought.
to
Business.
development, I think that's the area I'm focusing on now when it comes to this tech. I think so as it's needed. So, for example, one of my clients are doing staffing, and they're kind of doing it on blockchain. That way, everyone's accountable, everyone gets paid, and things of that nature. So, just inherent necessities that come with the tech is kind of where we're drawing benefits, as opposed to investment, because that's the Wild West. I agree, it's super tricky, and I feel like at the moment it might be a liability if you don't know what you're doing. So when it comes to kind of that level or things that are at scale like that, that's something I'm avoiding at the moment.
But if everybody here were to bet, they would bet that there's going to be more crypto opportunities going forward, not less.
Yeah, I mean, new coins come out every day.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if people were to bet, they may not go all in on one specific one, but they bet that there is going to be a winner or a handful of winners on this. It's not going to be all of them.
Yeah, that's a great point. So look back at the 90s and the dot-coms, right? How many IPOs did we have? How many companies?
Right.
And then,
How
many different book
I
companies?
still have Webvan stock.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but now we all get our groceries delivered.
Exactly. So
I got HelloFresh coming this afternoon for me.
tell ya.
Absolutely. And look, automobile was an eccentric investment at one time. There was no infrastructure for it. Maybe we could all say that's where
and
we
there
were.
were also hundreds of automobile companies.
Right, there's a lot going on. So I'm inclined, and maybe I'm a little quicker than the average bear to get involved, but I'm inclined to become a student of this. Like, it seems like everyone at this table, besides me at this point, but I'm inclined to at least become a student in this and do a little bit with it. And then from a pure business standpoint of helping people and making money, I'm inclined to maybe dig for a little gold as on the hobby side of things, but I think I want to learn more about selling the shovels. Sure. That's right, right, Drew?
Yeah. So so as mentioned earlier, I love to think of it as a Internet 3.0, as it's been called. So I think the inherent things that come along with the tech of blockchain, like security, decentralization, I think all those benefits are kind of where my interests lie. And in the work, I'm kind of working with my firm. And PantherCoin as well. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be applications like we use now. I think I really like the Lemonade example. That's the first time I'm hearing it. I think that was great. That's something that, HelloFresh, that we couldn't have thought of earlier. So where this tech is going to go is really going to be where new applications and innovations lead to.
So now I'm going to ask for free advice. We have a media company. We do Business Radio X. There's multiple studios around the country. We don't sell ads in a conventional way. We have sponsors. How would you counsel us to leverage the blockchain?
In terms of the advertisement revenue?
I don't know.
And
You tell me.
else?
Blank slate. How would a media company leverage blockchain?
So I'm actually doing a TV show just as a side project. And this is something I've been thinking about, especially this past week as I'm kind of getting ready for being on the show. Something I noticed is distribution. I noticed y'all are on iTunes and Spotify. It's super easy right now, especially the past year, so I was going to mention that a little later. But a way where everyone can access shows. I think that's kind of where the main part of it's going to be. That way you're not paying anyone to do distribution for you, and you're on Spotify. You can get on Breaker, for example, which I know is it's a podcast app, which is experimenting with distribution on blockchain. I know Anchor is as well, which is also a distribution platform. So I think ways that you save money as opposed to getting a sponsor and making money would be definitely an application of blockchain for the show.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of ecosystems that you could sort of follow along. Civil is basically a bunch of newspapers getting together and figuring out journalism and blockchain. They actually just launched, I think, this week, and these are really big names like Wall Street Journal, ex-Wall Street Journal, folks that are trying to use a tokenized, incentive system for their media, and then also archiving it, and then other people being able to reference it and charging for that. There's other ecosystems that are whole, like movie producing ecosystems, where it's tokenized within the community, so that if you need to use a certain camera, you pay a certain number of tokens. If you need a certain number of lights, you can use a certain tokens. And then to Drew's point, also payment happens through this blockchain ecosystem, so that people get paid immediately, because a lot of times for freelance labor and all this gig economy that's coming up, people don't get paid right away. So if you have a smart contract in place where the minute the work is done, that the payment happens immediately. So how to do it with the radio station?
Well, let me share something that is maybe not clear. The people we have running studios outside of Atlanta or anywhere other than us, they buy our service as software as a service. It's media as a service.
Okay.
So could we create our own currency
Totally.
that is all internal?
Yeah.
And then they could...
Yeah.
We're back to the stone coin now.
Yeah, you're back to the stone
circle.
And I want to do smart contracts. I want to hear more about this.
Well, so with smart contracts, and every lawyer is going to freak out about this, and it's not completely true, but the way that people say it is that law is code and code is law. So you do actually have a contract. You have a contract about how much you get paid. You have a contract with every when you make one of these radio shows, there's a contract for this radio show. So that could be actually code. And, as soon as you deliver the hour-long show, then the money just goes straight to your wallets. And it just happens. And it could be done in tokens. It could be done in Bitcoin. But it's a smart contract, and so the most simple version of a smart contract, to think of something that happens automatically, is the vending machine. You walk up to a vending machine, and for a Coke, it costs 75 cents. And so the contract is, if you put 75 cents in the machine and press B1, then you will get a Coke. That's basically automation right there through smart contracts. And then there's some little complexities to it, which is, if you put $1 in and press B1, then you will get a Coke and 25 cents back. That's how all that works. Just apply that to your work.
Yeah, think about this. It creates a tracking system, right? So internally now you're tracking all these transactions automatically through this technology. Accounting's going to be very happy. Most likely, if you're transacting information back and forth, you're probably using a third party, and you're probably paying for that. So you could remove that person too, right? So there's different ways to apply the technology. And there's a lot of smarter people than I am out there to give you those ideas.
So if we wanted to pursue it, or any business wanted to pursue it, like, do I have to hire now a smart person to build this ecosystem for it to work in?
Hire one of my students.
One of your students.
Yeah.
We can take it on as a senior project.
Yes.
So now,
as and say, because there's actually platforms in place that allow these students to step in, utilize a blockchain that's already in play, and then build a token on top of it. So it's a simplified process. So yes, they could easily, affordably create a solution for you that just needs to be maintained on the existing platform that's already out there, like Ethereum's one.
All right. Well, if we wanted to learn more, Elizabeth, if somebody, I guess, you don't have to only be GSU to participate in blockchain the workshops, or this is a GSU only?
It's GSU only, and actually it's quite a value for the students, because most of these like blockchain workshops that you go to are like $5,000 or so.
Exactly.
So. Yeah, and I just want to throw in one little thing that is very interesting to me. So actually, I'm actually more of a media maker and filmmaker, and know a lot more about the film and entertainment industry. And I actually helped write the study that garnered the Georgia Film Academy, which is a place where all students in Georgia and non-students can go and learn how to work in the film industry, because it was a high-demand career initiative.
Sure.
So most recently, the state of Georgia, along with Georgia State, created in sort of following in that footsteps, the Georgia FinTech Academy.
Right.
So because they recognize that it's a high-demand career initiative.
Same
thinking. So where my passion is, and where I like to put this plug, is that right now we're about the third largest film entertainment industries in the world is Georgia, and we're known as Transaction Alley. So 70% of all transactions go through Atlanta. So I want to take this opportunity to make Georgia the center for converting media into sort of a tokenized economy, and understanding how these transactions happen, and how to put data, creative data, onto the blockchain, and how to monetize it and exchange it. So I think we have a unique opportunity. So that's my little pitch.
All right. So now if somebody wanted to learn more, have a more substantive conversation with you, what's the best way to get a hold of you or get involved in the program?
eli@gsu.edu. eli@gsu.edu.
And is there a website for the Blockchain Academy or any of those other academies?
Try blockchain.gsu.edu. I'll go make it real quick.
All right. All right, Zach, if somebody wanted to get a hold of your book or have more some sort of conversation with you.
Yeah, so the book, The Millionaire Millennials, you can get it on Amazon. It's about $10 for paperback, and digital is about $5.
How many Bitcoins is that?
For Bitcoin conversation is 0.000. I'm not a computer, I don't know. But yeah, you can definitely look into it. And I'll just stress enough, it's more of tells the story, and then it gives you the tools you need to get your feet wet in this space without giving you advice on which ones to buy. It's going to tell you how to do your research, how to try to understand value, and hopefully benefit from it. You can go to my Twitter account, which is @MMSCrypto, which is the book one, or you can follow me at ZZ Hoffmeister as well.
And Drew, if somebody wanted to learn more about what you're up to?
Sure. So you can find me everywhere online at the handle DrewShah1, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, everywhere. Now you got me thinking about the show, though. I think
look, we're looking for help. So
yeah, speaking of using blockchain on the show, digital assets. I think as the show grows and you get more guests on, I think how they own the digital assets and how you own the content you produce is going to be definitely benefited through using blockchain. But yeah, you can find me anywhere online, just using my name.
And then the Panther coin, so that exists or not yet?
Well, it's a simulation. We're experimenting with it right now. So catch us at the end of the semester and we'll tell you how it went.
Good stuff. Well, thank you all for sharing your story. It's an exciting time for this, and it's information that people need. I know we meandered all over the place, but I think that we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
having us.
Oh, thank you all. Keep up the good work, and do keep us posted, and let's swing back around and get some periodic updates on this. This is fantastic information. I find it inspiring. I find it invigorating. I'm quite sincere about at least my personal commitment. I think it's time to learn more about this and begin to study it more, and I think we should, Lee, sincerely, as business owners, seriously entertain how we should be capitalizing on some of this knowledge to go out there and help people and make more money. And the more money we make, the more people we can help, the more people, just that thing, you couldn't stop that wheel if you wanted to. So this has been marvelous. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
All right, that's a wrap from Georgia State University Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute. We will see you next time.